Are you wondering how you can lower your insurance rates for your trucking company? Well, I'm Jeff with Inspirion Trucking Services, and today I've got 7 tips and 1 bonus tip on how you can bring down your overall rates, make the process easier, and make it faster. Now we'll talk about how to lower your insurance rate, some things that impact your rate and how you can lower them, some in the short term and some in the long term. So first off, experience. Experience is a big deal with the carriers. Whether it's just your driving experience or your business experience, they're both going to play into your rate. So most carriers will require all drivers to have a minimum of 2 years experience. Some carriers will allow you to go a little under 2 years, and some will even take you really from the start. But you're going to see that reflect in the premium. So if you're a new driver in a new company, you're going to expect to pay higher rates. It just is the way it is. Newer, inexperienced drivers unfortunately drive more of the claims, and the carriers have all the statistics on this, and so that's just the way it works. But the longer you've been doing it, the more experience you have as a business owner and as a driver, you can start to see some credits on that side. You want to be upfront and honest with your agent. So as your agent, our job is to get as much information about your company as we can so that we can make you look as good as possible to the underwriter, to make that underwriter want to do business with you and to make them want to give you credits and give you discounts. If we ask you questions and you're not straightforward or you don't want to give some information, well, then that kind of handcuffs us as to how much work we can do with the underwriters. So, we're on your team. We've got to stay within the guidelines, and we can't lie, but we're on your team. We want to help you work through whatever the situation is. And we want to be honest with you. So, if you've got some claims or some out-of-service violations or different things like that, we don't want to try and hide them because the carrier has a way of finding them. Instead, we want to look at them and say, okay, how do we solve this problem? How do we make it so that in the future, this problem, we either reduce it or minimize it or we make it go away. And then we can explain that to the carriers and we can work it from that angle. You want to be specific about your operations. So what commodities are you hauling? What's your travel radius? What cities are you going through? These things are important also because the underwriters are going to look at those and they're going to rate on those. And then some carriers want long haul and some carriers want day drivers. And so we want to make sure we get you with the right carrier. If you come in and say, well, I'm general freight, I'll haul anything, anytime. Well, that's okay, but you have to understand that that's going to also minimize who we can work with on the carrier side, because some carriers are more of a generalist, and it's going to reflect in the premium. You're going to pay a little higher rate, and some are specialized. Maybe some specialize in liquid asphalt or in dirt, sand, and gravel or refrigeration or whatever it may be, and they become really good at that one specific commodity, and that you get better rates that way. So the more specific you can be, the better the rate we can get you. Clean loss history. It goes without saying, if you have more claims, your rates are going to go up. Unfortunately, that's how the carriers recover the money from the losses. And so if you have claims, then what we need to do is we need to spend some time talking about how do we reduce those claims? How do we minimize them? How do we make those claims not happen in the future? So another thing is clean basic scores. A lot of new drivers, new companies, they don't really understand or know what the basic scores are, but the carriers do, and they're gonna look at that information. Whether they pull cab reports or some type of other analytics, they're gonna want to look and see how many out-of-service violations do you have, how many driver violations, how many maintenance violations, how many logging violations, all these different things, and they come up with a total risk score that says what is the likeliness or the percentage chance of you having a claim in the future. And so by keeping these scores clean, you're going to improve your rates that way as well, especially as you become a larger fleet. It's going to become more and more important. And there's the indirect cost of when you have the out-of-service violations. Now your trucks are down for some amount of time. They're not making money. It's costing you money on that side directly, and it's also costing you money on the insurance side later. So get all the necessary information to your agent as fast as you can. when we ask questions, we're not trying to be intrusive or get in your business. We're trying to get the information that we need to make that underwriter feel good about the account. And so when we request the information, the faster we can get it, the better, because if we send an incomplete submission to the underwriter, they got a stack of files this high they got to work through. And if yours is incomplete, it goes to the bottom of the pile. And so now we got to wait, and all those other ones that are getting worked ahead of us. So that slows down the process. It also, underwriters get paid by minding business. And so if they got 100 files and 5 of them are incomplete and missing information, they're going to focus on the ones that they feel like they can close. So getting that information as quickly as possible is important. Credit and business credit, these are a big deal as well. Some of the carriers look at credit. It's built in their analytics, and they can use that as a rating factor on your trucking business. And so better credit, better business credit, these things are going to help bring down your rate in most cases as well. And also financials. So especially as you get larger, but some of the carriers are going to ask to see your profit and loss report or your tax return. They want to know, are you financially stable? Are you a financially strong company? That's going to affect your rate. And also they're going to look at that to see, you look at your expenses. Is there any expenses going out to subhaulers? Because we need to make sure that you've got hired auto if you've got subhaulers, and we need to make sure it's rated appropriately. And most carriers don't want to see your hired auto or your subhaulers, above 10, 15, 20%. You start getting a bunch above that 20%, and some of the carriers are going to start to pull out and say, no, we don't want to work with this company. So those are important part of your financials as well. And then, the last thing is, what's your budget? How much can you afford? It doesn't make sense to waste a lot of time on your side or our side if your budget's $5,000 a year and the premium's going to be $20,000 a year. So it's important to just be honest and realistic. If we ask you how much you're paying right now, it's not because we're going to just come in a little bit below them and try to beat them. It's because we need to know, is this even viable? And we'll be honest with you. If you come in and say, I've got a rate for $10,000 a year, and we're going to look at it, and more than likely we're going to say, hey, you know what? We can go out and shop this for you. We'll be happy to try, but I'm just going to be honest. You probably have the best rate you're going to get right now. So it just helps to make sure that we're honest with each other from the beginning, because if there's not realistic expectations, then at the end we're going to go through all this time and effort, and then there's going to be frustration, and it really just doesn't make a lot of sense. So, and the last thing, I've got a bonus tip here that's going to help you to get the best rates in the fastest amount of time for your trucking insurance. But don't have several agents quoting your trucking policy at the same time. I know that sounds counterintuitive. The thought process is, well, if I go to 3 different agents, I'm going to get 3 different quotes, and I'm likely to get the best rate. Well, unfortunately, that's just not true. In the commercial insurance world, number one, the rule is usually 1 submission in, 1 quote out. So what'll happen is whoever's the first one to get their submission in, they're going to get the quote. They'll be the only one to get the quote, and the other 2 agents are just going to get blocked. And then the other part that causes problems is, let's say, for example, I ask you 10, 15, 20 questions, and agent number 2 does the same thing, and agent number 3 does the same thing, and we all submit to the same underwriter. And that underwriter starts opening up the files and notices that mileage is a little bit different from one agent to the other, or revenue, or something's off. They're going to start to put the whole account in question and decide, I don't know if I want to work with this one. There's too many variables. I'm going to put it down to the bottom, and if I get time later, I'll take a look at it. And you'll be less likely, if they do get back to it, to get those credits and things like that. So rather than, it'd be like a real estate agent. If you wanted to buy a house, you wouldn't go out and say, I'm going to hire 5 real estate agents and go find me a house. They're all going to find the same houses. So it doesn't do you any good. Instead, what you want to do is you want to go out and interview your agent. So you might interview 5 agents, ask them questions, get comfortable, make sure that they go through all the things that we just talked about in the beginning. Are they experienced in trucking insurance? Are they responsive? Do they get back to you quickly? Do they have a process for all the things that happen? Do they have access to the carriers? You know, if you are talking to an auto and home agent, they might have access to one carrier. And so that's really not good for you. It could be, but most chances you want to make sure you've got at least a couple of options. And so once you've interviewed the agent, you're comfortable with the agent, let them go out and work with the companies and do the negotiations to get you best rate. If you do these things, you're gonna find that you have a better agent, more responsive, get things done quicker and more easily, and you're gonna get better rates overall. So hopefully this information was helpful. If it was, hit the like or subscribe button. And if you need any more information, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to help.